What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be disassembling and reassembling the Vibe X-Drive. This is a drive that I've been using for about 4 years, basically since the Shearwater came out. Was it, I think, 4 years now. I've gotten good at taking it apart. I've figured out how to replace all the parts somewhat quickly. Some of these things take some time, but each time I take it apart, I find myself working on a different piece or having to replace a different component, which, you know, I'm going to add in. That's not something that's out of the ordinary. You know, these drives take an absolute beating, going back and forth thousands of times. The parts, as much as we would love for them to last forever, they do break down. So we need to be able to, first of all, know how to fix our drive, maybe fix it on the fly. If you're in the middle of a tournament or you're in the middle of the lake and something goes wrong, you should probably have some extra cables with you, maybe a couple extra spare parts, just so that you can handle any situations where you're stuck and be able to get back without having to get back to using your paddle. But you know, if you do break your drive in the middle of your trip, you might just have to make do with your paddle. Anyways, like I said, I've replaced a lot of these different parts. Something as simple as changing the cables, and something as complex as taking it completely apart, changing out the sprockets, and building it back up. It's a lot easier than it looks like. I mean, there's a lot of pieces on here, a lot of moving parts, but as you kind of break it down, everything falls into the right place, and it's not as hard as it may look like to get it back together. There's a couple key things that we'll point out that you want to pay attention to, but other than that, it's not too difficult. So really quick, before we do start taking this apart, I'm going to show you the tools that we're going to need. First of all, we're going to need a screwdriver. We're going to need an adjustable wrench, and we're going to be needing Allen wrenches. And finally, you should be able to use socket wrenches for this, but I actually prefer personally to use a set of pliers that are spring-loaded for undoing the cables. Probably not the most efficient necessarily way of doing it. I've just kind of gotten good at it because I've had to make a couple adjustments on the water in the past, and I just always know that I've got that handy. So that's what I like to use and how I do it. So with all that being said, we've got our tools, we've got our drive, and let's start taking this thing apart. All right, so we've got our drive here. Basically what we're going to be looking at, we're going to have to take off all these cables, the chains, the fins. We're going to unscrew the rods that hold the fins, all these different components. So we are going to start by taking off the fins, and all we're going to do is we're going to unscrew this pin right here. As you see, there's a little bit of a little ring right here, and we're going to take our pliers, split that open, and we are going to take that pin off. So a lot of these parts are really small, so try to work in an area that that you are going to be able to find small pieces that you drop. So these are the two pieces that we just took out. These hold the that back side of the fin in place. What tightening that up does is it pulls everything kind of up tight instead of letting that back end of the fin sag down. So when I take these off, I try to keep these together. I put this ring back on that little bolt that goes in the fin. And you know, I'll apologize now for not knowing all the actual names of these parts, but you know, hopefully I do a good enough job that y'all can get the picture. So after you take that piece out, the fin should just slide right off, nice and easy. And we're gonna do the same thing on the other side. The other thing I like about using these pliers is they've got the little split ring right at the end. So they're good to have for this too. Otherwise, these can be a little bit annoying. I forgot to loosen that up. If you don't loosen it up, it's not a big deal. It's just a little bit tight trying to get it out. Same thing, just putting this right back into the pin. Really just so I don't lose it, because I've got a bad habit doing that too. And again, that fin's going to slide right off just like that. So now we've got 2 fins. We're going to set these down right over here. Now, just to get these out of the way, to kind of reduce the bulk a little bit, we're going to take these rods out. These are the rods that hold the fins. This is where we are going to take our adjustable wrench, and we can kind of lay into this thing. So down here, you'll notice there's these little slots, little flat sides of these rods, where you can put the wrench around there and just pull it down as hard as you can. And you won't damage the rod. So put it in there, tighten it up, and just like that. Once you get that first pull, you can usually just hand loosen it. Maybe even gone a little early on that, but that's okay. And there we go. That's our rod. That's all that it is. When we put it back on, we're going to use this wrench also to tighten it up and really get it on there tight, because the last thing you want is one of these rods falling out in the middle of the water. For when I put these apart, take these apart, I just stick the rod right back into the fin. Again, trying to put stuff in places where I won't lose it. So we're going to do the same thing over here on the other side. Get the wrench, tighten it up. But you can see just how hard you can torque on this without having to worry about that rod breaking. There we go. And now we got the other rod out. And put that right into the fin, just like this. And again, we're leaving these 2 fins right over here. So now this is what we're left with without the fins. I like to take the fins off first, just because it makes this smaller and a lot easier to work with. You know what? I said I wasn't going to take the pedals off, but we're here, so why not? And so we're going to use a 5/8 inch socket wrench on this. Real simple. Loosen this up. That's loose enough. Get that out of here. So one thing when you go to take the pedal out, it won't come right out. You got to make sure you squeeze the, I don't know what to call this, but the thing that adjusts so that it doesn't stay locked into the pinhole there. So squeeze that, pull it straight up, comes out pretty easily. I'm going to set this right over here. We get that last bolt coming out. Squeeze this, pull that pedal straight out. And there we go. Now, this is what we're left with. As you can see, this drive is getting smaller and smaller with every part we take off of it. I mean, really, we got the basic pieces off now. We got the fins and the pedals, probably 2 of them easier pieces to disassemble. Moving on, I'm probably going to end up fast forwarding through this part where we get the chains. So I'll show you this here. Like I said, I like using these just because I've kind of gotten good at doing this on the water. One thing that helps is as you loosen this up, if you're going to use pliers like I do, if the screw just comes straight down, you get this gap right here. You tend to get the cable instead of the nut. So I just like to push that up a little bit while I continue loosening this up. And there we go. Should be able to get the rest of it. That's it. We've got that off. I will say you will have to loosen the other side at least a little bit just to get this part up and out. Ultimately, to get this up, we're trying to get this cable up over this little lip right here. So if we can get it, there we go. Just like that. All right. So now we got it out of that slot, out from underneath here, and this cable is going to just, oh yeah, something to point out right here while we've got it. This goes underneath the idler cable. So when we do reset this, this is going to go over top of the chain cable. You see it on this side. I'm going to get this chain off real quick, and we'll be able to keep going. All right, got that nut off. We're going to screw it back on the end of this chain cable. All right, so now we got both the chains off. Whew, a little hot in my garage. Now we're going to move on to the idler cable. This idler. So I mean, there's, like I said, there are better ways of doing this. I just don't have all the tools, all the right tools all the time. So I do the best I can with what I got. Anyways, here's what we've got with the cables taken off, the fins taken off, and the pedals taken off. You can see these things just kind of float through freely. Next step, put this back over here for the time being. All right, next step, we're grabbing our screwdriver. Put our pliers right back over here. These tiny screws right here, they're very small. They don't come out too far, so just be ready. Take that out. And that piece is just going to kind of pry open and slide off just like that. What's important to notice with these pieces, this little slot right here, that's how you know it's going to be for this, for the side of the sprocket that holds the metal pin. So that way when you put it back on, this kind of wraps around the that spot. Same thing, small screw. I'm going to tighten that back up right here just so I don't lose it. All right, so we've got that one off. Next up, we're going to just slide this back piece off on this sprocket, just like that. This one does not have a screw or anything on it. It's only the front one that does. So this is where that pin goes from the fin. So that slides right in there. That's what holds that piece together. This front one just doesn't have, this front one doesn't really have anything to hold in place, and that's why we put that screw in there. So I'm going to set these over here, and then I'm going to get the other side if I can find my screwdriver. There we go. There we go, we got that unscrewed. Easy. Same thing, and just slide this off. Screw it right back in there. All right, not losing that. Now we're gonna slide that off right here. Okay, so now we've got those 4 pieces off. All right, so now we're left with this. Next up, we are going to take off these sprockets. So with these sprockets, you're going to see there's this metal pole basically that slides right through there. To get that out, we got to start by taking out a little tiny screw that's tucked in here, holding that small metal piece, I'm sorry, that metal rod in place. 3/32. There it is, 3/32 of an inch. We're going to unscrew this. We're not going to take it all the way out, again, so that we don't lose it. And as you see, this is already, there goes right there. There goes one sprocket, and there goes the other one. So just like those fins, this is where that, it's got a little cutout right here, a little flattened out spot. That's where this little tiny screw inside of here holds this in place, and it stops it from ever falling out. So now we've got our 2 sprockets out. We'll set those aside over here. And that's it. So the one and only piece that I am not going to take off because of how difficult it is to put back on there is, I forget the name of this piece. I will, I'll put it in the video when I find it. But basically, I'm going to try to angle this so you can see it. But there are these tiny little bearings inside this part, and I believe there's 19 of them total. And they're these tiny little pins, and ultimately what you do, you're going to unscrew this screw, the same Allen wrench right here, and it's got a small metal rod in it just like this one. You're going to take that out, but as soon as you take it out, those little rods that make up the bearing that spin this piece go flying all over the place. And if you lose one, you're in some trouble. So I have done it before where I was able to reassemble it, put it back in there, and put these bearings in the right way, but it is very, very difficult. So this one piece I'm not going to take off today. And this is it. That's all the parts of the X-Drive. And that's it. All right, so we are going to start putting this thing back together. First thing we got to do is we have to get the sprockets back on there. So what we're going to do, we're going to take this metal rod. We are going to try our best to make sure we keep this flat part lined up as we go through. If you forget which side is forward, which side is back, we always know that this piece is going to be in the front. Also, these numbers on the X-Drive, we should be able to read them. So this piece is in the front. As you can see, these numbers we can read. They're right side up for us. So this is the front of our drive right here. We can start by putting our front sprocket in. And the front of the sprocket is always going to be the part that holds the rod. So I'm going to get this lined up. All we're doing is starting to thread this rod through that first slot and then get it through the sprocket. Again, we are trying to line this flat piece up the best that we can. Going straight across. Make sure that rod goes through the middle slot here. And we're going to line up that edge of the rod right there and grab our other sprocket. Again, this little bigger, and I guess I'll just call it the bigger side of it, bigger edge, is going to be going forward. Try not to let that, that rod rotate. And you can see there's a small little space in between the two sprockets where you can kind of make sure you've got that lined up the right way. And take your Allen wrench. I'm going to tighten it down. As tight as you can get it. And that rod is not going anywhere. Nice and tight. So there we go. We've got our sprockets back in place just like that. So next up, we are going to get these pieces on next. Now remember, these pieces that don't have that little cutout, they are the pieces that go on the back side here. What we're going to do, actually this way, we're going to take this back edge of it, try to slide it over the skinniest part of the sprocket, and then just kind of push it upwards. And then wrap it around until it clicks into place. And take the back one to the other side too. Same thing on this little spot. But just to get it spread first, slide it up, rotate it through. There we go. Now, time for the front one. Taking these screws back out. So now we've got this piece. We got the screw back out of it. We are going to point this this notch, the pointy part that it takes the rod for the. We're going to point this part on the sprocket away from us, and we're just going to take the open side of this cover piece and push it straight down onto it and slide right into position. And once you line this up, there's a little hole right there where you're going to know where to put the screw into. There we go. That's all we need on that one right there. That's tightened up. That's right where it needs to be. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So again, taking that screw out. Getting this piece pointed away from us. Just pushing it right on there. And then we're going to hit the other side. Cinch it down. There we go. We have got our sprockets back on. That metal piece back on. Just like that, nice and easy. Probably the hardest part about getting the chains put back on, just from what I've experienced in the past, is getting them back on evenly and not like too far to one side. And that's just a little bit of a pain to kind of redo, but something you got to do once in a while. So it is what it is. But we're going to start by just getting one side of this chain in and tightened down. So if you can see here, there is like a little hole right up on the edge when you go to put the chain in. So instead of coming in and just going straight down into it, you can kind of come and get into the corner and then wrap it around the housing before getting it into the position that you want it. All right, we are going to switch sides here real quick. So we're going to get that in there just enough to start screwing it down. remember, this piece is going to have to go around these chains eventually. But see, it's kind of tough when these are going back and forth. All right, so we're not going to tighten this down all the way yet. But that's one cable. As you can see, these pieces are pretty loose. They're not staying in place. That's okay. We're going to get the other chain put on. All right, we got that head threaded on. Trying to get this to go as close to the right way as possible. There we go. Got it in there. Next up, we gotta try to get this over that little edge. There it goes. Push it down just enough. So what you'll see over here, this is completely turned the other opposite direction. This this side's on there perfectly, it looks like. But this one I'm gonna have to change, because if I go with it like this, I'm gonna have one fin to the left and one straight down. So all I'm gonna do here is loosen up these chains. Try and get this chain bunched up just enough to be able to shift it over to one side. Let's see, that do it? That's it. Got that side even. You can see right there, pointed down. Oh, wait a minute. I'm gonna tighten these up and see where they end up. As you do tighten them up, again, make sure these cables don't pop out of their slots. So that does look like I got it right. So last thing we are going to do here is get the idler cable put on. It's going to be this cable right here. So this cable is going to go over top here, just like that. Tuck underneath this gray piece and go in right here. And this cable, like I said, is going to be one of the most difficult parts of this whole project. So I'll get that piece in there. Yeah, I know the idler cable is not over top of that. I keep forgetting the name of this part. I know it's not over top of it right now. That's okay. It's going to end up being a little easier to get this just in position first, and then adjust it how we need it to be adjusted. So we go here, underneath on one side, underneath on one side. There we go. So that's in position. Now we need to tighten it up. All right, now we got this in position, just about as good as it's going to be. We can tighten these chains back up. So something to look at, something to pay attention to as you're tightening up these screws. You want to make sure that each screw is as equally tight on one side as it is on the other as you possibly can. You don't want to lock down one side and keep the other side completely loose. All right, next up, we are going to get these fins put back on. So real simple, we're going to get these rods screwed right back into those front sides. We are going to grab our adjustable wrench again. Tighten this thing down as tight as you can make it. That's it, nice and tight. Now let's get the other one on too while we're here. Get the other rod. So get in there tight, that's it. All right, next up, we're getting these fins put back on. This is the easy part. Sliding this up, making sure that this plastic piece back here is lining up. So this is where that little tiny pin is going to go into. So we want to make sure this is sliding right up in there the best that it can. Got to take the ring back off of this. Try it from this side. Got that pin in. There we go. That's it. Now the last thing here on this one, we're going to tighten this back up. And this just pulls this fin all the way up. So it's as close to being flush as it can be. So that, as you, like if you see this, you tighten this little thing up, it's going to pull it kind of down into the fin. So that once that pin is in, it's going to pull the entire fin up into the assembly. But for now, we want that to be out as far as it can go. So it's a little bit easier to lock this fin into place. So we'll put this fin on. Put the pin through. So that pin will fall out. I kind of just like try to press down on it to keep the fin putting pressure on it. But it'll fall out if you don't keep something on it probably. That's what happened to me earlier. So keep this going. There we go. Again, tightening this up. Pulling that fin up as high as it needs to go. You can see with those tightened out, we got the front of the fin flush mounted to the front of the sprocket. We're looking good so far. Fins are lined up evenly, about as even as they're going to be. And we can test this out right here just like that. Last step. We're going to put these pedals back on. This is our right side. I'll lock that into place. We'll put it at number 5 just for the time being. All right, so we're going to tighten this up until it's snug. But if we over tighten it, it's going to be very difficult to move this back and forth. So tighten it up so it's just tight enough to where it's going to be snug, but you don't want it to be too hard to adjust your pedals if you ever need to. All right, we'll get the other side on. And that's our reassembled X-Drive system right there. And here we go, working perfectly just like that. We are ready to hit the water. Everything's tightened up. Something I forgot to mention is when you are tightening up these cables, you don't want them to be too tight. You want them to be tight enough. You want them to be tight enough to stay in place, not slip out of position. But if you tighten them up too much, first of all, it's going to put your stuff at risk for breaking a lot sooner. If you're somebody that breaks cables, you might think about trying to keep them a little bit looser than you usually tighten them up. But again, if you think it's as tight as they need to be, the stuff breaks sometimes. It's unfortunate, but it's true. Doesn't matter what drive you have, stuff breaks. And that's why we got spare parts. Aside from that, it's also going to slow you down. So it takes a lot more effort to pedal forward and backwards over and over again. And if you've got those cables too tight, it's going to pull everything together. So it's going to be a little bit more difficult. It's going to have a little bit more friction to work through. And it may not seem like a big deal, but over time, if you're going to have a long day on the water, that little bit of extra resistance really adds up and can get you a little bit more tired by the end of the day. So now that we've got our X-Drive up and running, you've seen how to break it down, put it back together. I'm going to go try to get on the water with this, see just how good of a job that we did. Like this video, subscribe to my channel. If you've got any questions, please put them in the comments. Anything that you may need a little bit more description on, a little bit more detail. Maybe I didn't get close enough into any part of breaking this thing down or putting it back together. Anything that you've got, please let me know, and I'll address it the best that I can. Other than that, I'll see you in my next video.